Jeff Slauson here from 19 News Now at the 19 News digital desk, going to be bringing you live right now into the sentencing of a Garfield Heights murderer. This is a person that was convicted and is being sentenced now for the shooting of 3 people outside of a Garfield Heights bar in 2021. Who you're seeing there is Cortland Scales. He shot 3 people. 1 died outside of the Uncut Lounge in Garfield Heights. We'll bring you live to the sentencing. You're seeing him on your screen right now. Now, the deliberation was supposed to start a few hours ago, or at least an hour ago here. The prosecution and the defense were brought back into the judge's quarters. That's somewhat typical in a situation like this. However, the delay isn't necessarily. Waiting to see what's going to happen here.
Case number 682385, the state of Ohio versus Cortland Scales. Just 1 second, off the record.
Now, as we wait for the judge to provide an official comment here, it seemed like she was about ready to talk there. I want to break down exactly what is happening here and what did happen.
Okay, again, we are on the record this afternoon in case number 682385, the state of Ohio versus Cortland Scales. Present in court today is the defendant, Mr. Scales. He is represented by counsel, Attorney Jonathan McDonald. And on behalf of the state of Ohio, we do have Assistant Prosecuting Attorneys Kristen Carcutt and Michael Martinez. We are set this afternoon for purposes of a sentencing hearing. Ms. Carcutt, on behalf of the state of Ohio, do you have any victims representatives, or law enforcement who wish to address the court today? And if so, please introduce them.
We do, Your Honor. 3 of DeAndre Rome's family members will be speaking this afternoon. His mother, his wife, and his aunt. I'm sorry, his cousin.
Okay.
I'm not sure how the court would like to proceed with respect to having them speak. If you want the state to kind of sum up our piece and then have that victim impact information, however the court would like to proceed this afternoon.
That would be fine. Thank you. At the appropriate time, I'll address you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Scales, is there any reason to not proceed with sentencing today?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Scales, on August 25th of this year, following a trial by jury, you were found guilty of count 2 of your indictment, that being murder in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.02a. You were found guilty of count 3, that again being murder in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.02b. You were found guilty of count 4, that being felonious assault in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.11a1. You were found guilty of count 5, again that being felonious assault in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.11a2. You were found guilty of count 6, that being attempted murder in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2923.02 and 2903.02a. You were found guilty of count 7, that being attempted murder in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2923.02 and 2903.02a. You were found guilty of count 8 of your indictment, that being felonious assault in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.11a1. as well as count 9, that being felonious assault in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.11A2. You were found guilty of count 10 of your indictment, that being felonious assault in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.11A1. You were found guilty of count 11 of your indictment, that being felonious assault in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.11A2. You were found guilty of count 12 of your indictment, that being discharge a firearm on or near prohibited premises in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2923.162A3. And with respect to counts 2 through 12, you were also found guilty by this court of a 54-month firearm specification. And lastly, you were found guilty by this court of count 13, that being having weapons under disability, in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2923.13A2. Turning now to the state of Ohio. Ms. Carcutt, actually, you know what, prior to doing that, what I would like to do, Mr. Scales, I do need to advise you of your notice of duties to enroll as a violent offender. I have a document in front of me. Is this your signature down here?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you did have an opportunity to review this document with your lawyer?
Yes.
Okay, what I will do, I will go through it with you so that you do understand registration requirements going forward. So number 1, you have been convicted of or pleaded guilty to a qualifying violent offender offense as defined in Ohio Revised Code 2903.41. Number 2, you are required to enroll in person with the sheriff of the county in which you establish residency within 10 days of coming into that county, or if occupying a dwelling for more than 3 days in that county. Number 3, you are required to provide the sheriff certain information, including A, your social security number, full name, and any alias you use, B, your residence address, C, information regarding the offense of which you were convicted or pleaded guilty, D, a description of any scars, tattoos, or other distinguishing marks on your person, E, the name and address of any place where you are employed or attend school, F, any driver's license number or commercial driver's license number or state identification card number issued to you, G, the license plate number of each vehicle owned or operated by you or registered in your name. The vehicle identification number and a description of the vehicle must also be provided to the sheriff. Number 4, you are required to provide the sheriff fingerprints and palm prints. The sheriff will also obtain a photograph of you at the time of enrollment. Number 5, after the date of initial enrollment, you are required to re-enroll annually. You must update and or amend any of the information described above that has changed and provided any additional information requested at the county sheriff's office within 10 days of the anniversary of the calendar date on which you initially enrolled. Number 6, if you change your residence address, you shall provide written notice of that change to the sheriff with whom you most recently enrolled and to the sheriff in the county in which you intend to reside. You are required to comply with all of the above described requirements for a period of 10 years unless your sentencing court determines otherwise. Number 7, since your expected residence address is located in Cuyahoga County, you shall enroll in person no later than 10 days after release. Number 8, failure to enroll or failure to verify residence at the specified times will result in criminal prosecution. And then number 9 states, I acknowledge that the above requirements have been explained to me. I understand the requirements that I must abide by all of the provisions of the Ohio Revised Code sections 2903.41 through 2903.44. And then you did sign and date the documents, and I will do the same. Do you have any questions about these registration requirements?
No.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Carcutt, turning back to the state of Ohio, what would you like this court to consider prior to imposing sentence?
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. As this court imposes a sentence on this defendant today, it asks that the court consider the victim impact statements that are about to be made to this court, the facts of this case that the court is well versed in, given that you presided over portions of this trial as a finder of fact with respect to those 54-month firearm specifications and heavy weapon under disability. I outlined and also asked the court to consider the sentencing memorandum filed by the state of Ohio. Your Honor, I outlined in that sentencing memorandum which offenses that the defendant was found guilty of that merged for the purposes of sentencing. So counts 2, 3, 4, and 5, murder A, murder B, and felonious assault, all relate to DeAndre Brown. The state of Ohio elects that this court sentence the defendant on count 2. Counts 6, 8, and 9 are allied offenses. Those are attempted murder and 2 felonious assaults. The state elects on count 6. Counts 7, 10, and 11 are allied offenses, attempted murder, and also 2 counts of felonious assault, and we elect on count 7. Counts 6 and 7 relate to Mario Gay and Donnie Walker. The remaining 2 counts, which are discharge of a firearm on or over prohibited premises that did result in serious physical harm, does not merge, and the court may issue a separate sentence on that, and also the weapons under disability. All of the firearm specifications for which this defendant was found guilty merge with each other, and the state elects that this court proceed on the most serious of those, which are the 54-month firearm specifications. Pursuant to revised code section 2929B1G, this court must impose consecutive sentences for 2 of those 4.5-year firearm specifications. So, as outlined by the offenses in which the state of Ohio is electing that this court proceed to sentencing on, the minimum sentence that this court could impose on Mr. Scales is life with parole eligibility after 24.5 years. That would be 15 to life for murder and 2 of those 54-month firearm specifications. Were this court to impose maximum consecutive sentences for every count for which the defendant was found guilty of, and counts 6, 7, and 12 are all felonies of the first degree. They carry a prison term of 3 to 11 years and up to a $20,000 fine. And then count 13 carries a prison term of 9 to 36 months. Plus, it is within this court's discretion to impose those 2 additional 54-month firearm specifications that are attached to either count 6 or count 7, and then also count 12. So when you look at 15 to life, 18 years in firearm specifications, 33 years maximum for the 3 felonies of the first degree, and 3 years for weapon under disability, that leaves this court with a wide discretion of 24.5 years being the minimum and 69 years to life being the maximum. We're not asking for maximum consecutive sentences, Judge, on all of these counts, but the state of Ohio is asking for more than the minimum. And here are some of the reasons why, and I outlined those in my sentencing memorandum. 3 people were seriously injured and 1 died here. It is amazing that not more people who stood outside uncut that night as the defendant fired 14 rounds at 7 individuals. It's a miracle he only struck 3, and it's a miracle that only 1 died. That's the reality of his conduct, and that's the reality of why discharge over a roadway puts other people at danger. You put these other people at danger, in fact, our entire community at danger by engaging in that behavior. And also ask the court to consider his prior criminal history. Right? This year, what happened on October 29th, 2021 was a mass shooting. Right? How do we look at mass shootings? They're serious, right? 3 people here with a risk to many more. And this wasn't the defendant's first go-around in engaging in mass shootings. His conviction from 2008, he shot 5 people that night, 5, and shot at many. Again, it's crazy that he only has 1 body, but he's committed that much harm in our community just in the last 15 years. He received a 9-year sentence for that case, gets released from prison, picks up another weapons case, so he's another conviction for weapon under disability prior to this one. And then what does he do this night? He can't take being talked to and asked to not be offensive to a young lady at an establishment. So he leaves the bar, straps himself with a weapon, tracks these people down, and unleashes havoc in the city of Garfield Heights. It's unacceptable. It's tragic for this family behind me and the other victims. And it didn't have to happen. Everything that happened that night is a result of this defendant's choices, the choices that he made. This isn't just some travesty, oh well, now here we are. It's a choice he's made in the past. It's a choice that he made again. He's the instigator. He's the aggressor. And this court's sentence today needs to reflect that this isn't someone who deserves the minimum sentence. It would demean the seriousness of the offense in this case. Judge, I ask you to consider all of that, and I ask that you consider what you hear from these three young ladies who are all from DeAndre Roman's family. I did speak with Mario Gay prior to today about being heard at sentencing, and he is currently unavailable. He's at the hospital or at a doctor's appointment with his wife or girlfriend who's expecting their next child. But he, did relate to me that it is important that this court consider the things that I've outlined in imposing sentence today.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Your Honor.
Prior to beginning your statement, would you please state your full name for our court reporter and spell it?
Brittany Taylor, Brittany, Taylor, Taylor.
And Ms. Taylor, what would you like me to know?
First off, I am the cousin of DeAndre Roan, the innocent bystander who was murdered in this crime. On October 30th, just after midnight, I received a phone call that would forever change my life. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the old saying that the phone rings differently when something is wrong. When I saw that it was Dre's mom on the other end, my stomach dropped. Due to the timing of the call, I knew this was a call that no one wants to receive. When she told me that Dre had been shot, I instantly felt like I was drowning. The room started to spin, and I felt like I was in a nightmare. But here I am, almost 2 years later, and I still haven't waken up from this nightmare because it's actually our family's reality. Dre was such an important person in my life. And seeing my cousin fight for his life in that hospital bed is now the last image I have of a person who shines so bright. A person who was always kind, loving, loyal, genuine, giving, hardworking, talented, happy, smiling, laughing, singing, dancing, and bringing others joy, especially me and my children. Now couldn't even look at me. We've heard so many narratives in trial these past couple weeks about someone being scared, but I'm 100% sure that my cousin was the one who feared for his life in that moment. And I can't even imagine what his last thoughts were in a situation that was so petty and that had absolutely nothing to do with him. In a community where good black men are already scarce, we have had one of the few taken away from us. DeAndre was college educated. He was a Christian. He was a son, a grandson, a brother, a nephew, a cousin, a friend, and one of his newest and most important roles was that he was a husband and a father. I remember he was so excited to become a dad because Dre loved kids. He called me like favorite cuz. I'm about to be a daddy. And guess what? The baby is due on your birthday. That's how I know you my favorite. Baby gonna be a Leo just like us. Being a Leo was just one of the things that me and Dre had in common. Our birthdays were just 5 days apart, so celebrating is just no longer the same. We were always together, sharing our love for music through singing and dancing, which now is also no longer the same. Dre was more than just my cousin. He was like my brother. He was my protector, and he was my friend. He was a father figure to my kids, who are also still traumatized by losing him. My son looks so much like him, so much, and acts like him. Dre would call him my little twin. So much joy has been sucked right out of us. Nothing can prepare you for the death of a loved one, not even when they're sick and you know that death is evident. But to have your loved one shot and dying alone in the street is a pain I wouldn't even wish on my worst enemy. A person that only wanted to be a peacemaker and would have given the shirt off his back to anyone in this courtroom. His mom can no longer bring him a Pepsi every day, or any day for that matter. His father can no longer look him in his eyes or have his back. His wife can't tell him that she loves him. He can't hold his daughter's hands, one of which he didn't even get to meet. My children lost their friend, their Uno partner, and I've lost the member of our made-up R&B group. I will never again get the call, "Hey, cuz, it's Friday, turn up." I never could have imagined that that was the last time that we would say "I love you" would actually be our final time. I hope today you realize what you've taken from us. Because today, and the past almost 2 years now, and for the rest of our lives, we have to mourn the loss of Dre. You left a hole in this family's heart that can never be filled. Your Honor, I just ask that you please take into account all of the heartache and the suffering that we've endured. I hope that Dre's death was not in vain, and that the defendant can never be a danger to this community again. Because he was never the victim in this story, he was always the villain. The sentence certainly will not bring Dre back, but it is hoped that it will keep the defendant from making anyone else ever feel this type of pain.
Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor.
Speak very slowly because you're reading your agendas. Read out the facts.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your full name for the record and spell your name?
My name is Sheree Wimberly, Sharra, Wimberly, Wimberly.
And Ms. Wimberly, what would you like me to know?
I am the mother of DeAndre Rome. I have dreaded this day and thought many times about what I would say once I had the chance to speak. I realized that my voice would have to be the voice for my son. Over the last 8 days, we have heard about our flawed criminal justice system, and part of that system allowed for an extended amount of time to wait for trial. Time to suffer, time to continue to grieve day after day. And I have waited almost 2 years to tell the court about DeAndre Rome. So please allow me a moment to share Dre's story. There are no words that can describe the horrific pain I've gone through since the day DeAndre was murdered. This pain is something I will experience for the rest of my life due to the actions of the defendant and the illegal and irresponsible choice he made on October 29th of 2021. You had no reason to go to Uncut Lounge. You specifically came there for trouble. You didn't just fire one shot, not 2, but 14 shots. And one of those bullets hit my son, DeAndre. The defense attorney talked a lot about the other victims, but there was one main victim, one person who died, one person who will never come home to his family, one person that was murdered. The defense attorney rarely mentioned my son's name much at all, so let me share the life and death of DeAndre Jamal Rome. In following the would it surprise you to know theme that the defense attorney kept mentioning, allow me to ask you, would it surprise you to know that DeAndre was not just my only son, but he was my only child? Would it surprise you to know that he was a husband? He and his wife recently married, but he wasn't alive to celebrate his 2nd year anniversary. He will never get a chance to experience the full life of a married couple. No vacations, no anniversary celebrations, no arguments with chances to make up. DeAndre loved his wife and the family that he created more than anything. Would it surprise you to know that DeAndre was a father, an amazing father? He adored his daughter, and she was the light of his life. Would it surprise you to know that DeAndre's loving wife was pregnant with their 2nd daughter? And would it surprise you to know that he murdered my son before he was able to actually meet, hold, adore, and love his 2nd daughter in person? My son was a new father of a 1-year-old and was killed before his 2nd child was ever born. My pregnant daughter-in-law had to birth my 2nd granddaughter without her husband because of the irresponsible choice he made at the Uncut Lounge on October 29th of 2021. His children will never have an opportunity to know their father. No father-daughter dances, no Father's Day celebrations, no dad to walk them down the aisle on their wedding days. Nothing. He stole this from us. Would it surprise you to know that he was a Christian who dedicated his life to Christ? He was not a thug roaming the streets after being released from prison, looking to engage in violence and shoot innocent people. Would it surprise you to know that he was an educated young man and was gainfully employed? My son went to college. He dated his wife while in college. He wasn't in jail during his teen years for a variety of crimes. Would it surprise you to know that I struggle with understanding the vibe that I feel every time I walk in this courtroom? I think about the audacity that one must have to look at me as if I was the shooter. The audacity to complain, to side-eye me while I hope and pray that he is locked up in jail for the rest of his God-given life. Being in jail is still more than what I have. Eating a prison meal versus never eating a meal ever in life. Speaking to you on a recorded line versus never hearing another spoken word. Visiting you in a prison versus visiting you in a graveyard. Looking at you through a plexiglass window while I'm looking at a picture frame. Saying happy birthday as he gets older versus being forever 28 years old. It's the forever part for me. Forever gone, forever missed, forever memorialized because Cortland Scales murdered my son. Would you be surprised to know that I hate listening to the phone ring? Considering that I spoke with DeAndre every day on the phone, I now know that when the phone rings, it will never be him. I will never hear, "Hey, Ma," or "I love you," or simply, "What you doing?" I wake up every morning to the realization that this was not a nightmare, that my loving DeAndre is no longer here. He won't be sitting at the breakfast table with me. He won't be eating his favorite meal. He won't be stopping by my house just to say hello on his way to Uncut. It's sad that I am a resident of Garfield Heights, and I have to pass by the location where DeAndre was murdered every single day. I relive that night over and over and over again. I have to drive over the street that my son's blood flowed down every single time I leave my house to go to the bank, the grocery store, the gas station. These are places where I should be able to go in peace, but I will never have peace. You stole that when you stole my son's life. Would it surprise you to know that like my love, my memory is also external? I remember the endless nights at the hospital. The doctors told me that they didn't think he would survive, and they were right. Equivalent to the 8 days of this trial, for 8 long days, I watched my son as he suffered. The first night, DeAndre coded at the scene of the crime. He coded in surgery as well. After surgery, he was on a ventilator, bleeding from several places, having involuntary movements, seizing, suffering, tubes in every part of his body, lying in the bed looking like pain I could never imagine and never wanted for my child. My son suffered for 8 days while trying to fight for me, trying to fight for his wife, trying to fight for his kids. My son suffered to fight for his life because of a fight he wasn't even involved in. My son suffered. This is something as a parent I will never get out of my head. He looked miserable, and the doctors told us he had no brain activity. He would never walk, he would never talk again or speak again if he survived. He would never recognize anyone again. On November 7th of 2021, DeAndre took his last breath. I stayed with him and watched as he slipped away and saw him take his last breath. Nothing can describe the hurt, the sadness, the pain, the emptiness I felt once he was gone. This has not just affected me, but it's affected our entire family. DeAndre was a family man and enjoyed spending time with all parts of his family. As you look around this room today, you can see how much everyone loved him. He interacted with his grandparents, his cousins, his aunts, his uncles from all sides of the family. DeAndre was the life of the party, remembered by many because of his voice and his love for dancing. Sadly, he will never be able to celebrate another birthday, holiday, or family event. We will never hear his voice again. All we have are memories, photos, videos, and two beautiful children that remind me so much of him. At night, I lie in bed awake thinking this can't be true. My son is really gone. Like most parents, we believe that we would outlive our children. We believe we will see our children mature into productive citizens and members of society. Unfortunately, DeAndre's time was cut short. Instead of having the opportunity to watch DeAndre live his life, I must watch DeAndre's family and friends living their lives. While I rejoice for them, my heart will forever be broken knowing that I cannot see the same life progression for my own son. The life he once had is no more. All I have are memories of the past and thoughts about what his final moments on earth must have felt like. You robbed DeAndre of his life dreams and his future. You not only robbed DeAndre, but me of my future as well. I must find new purpose, new hope, and new reasons to keep going each day. Every happy moment in my life has a black cloud hanging over it because my son isn't a part of it. I cry often when I'm alone. Holidays, birthdays, Father's Day, and special moments our family celebrate reminds me of how empty I feel. I can no longer share things with my son. I will never hear his laughter or hear his voice. He should be with us. In the end, nothing can change the course of events. DeAndre is gone and Cortland Scales murdered him. I pray that this trial will help me with my healing. Today I'm reminded my heart is shattered and the outcome of this trial is unable to do anything to repair it. Cortland remains alive and his family can still talk with him and visit with him. He was able to enjoy drinking his Pepsi during trial, while my son will never be able to do any of this. Would it surprise you to know that people really can die of a broken heart? I almost did. Months after losing my son, my heart couldn't take anymore and it stopped. My heart stopped. I had a heart attack and they feverishly tried to bring me back to life, even stopping the ambulance on the freeway to assist in working on pumping my heart back to life. I almost died of a broken heart. I am sure my guardian angel, my son, pushed me back, making sure I was here for this day, for this trial, for this closure, so I can stand here at this very moment to tell you his story and share how much he was loved. This is the story of DeAndre Jamal Rome. No false narrative and no forgetting to mention the main character. DeAndre Rome was shot and murdered by the defendant, and there's nothing you can do that will ever change that. I pray to God have mercy on your soul, and I pray you never forget the pain and destruction you have caused because of your decision. I hope and pray that every night you close your eyes, that you remember the name DeAndre Jamal Rome and own up to what you did. I ask, Judge, that you have no mercy on this defendant, just like he had no mercy when he shot and killed my son. I wish you could spend every October 29th in the hole for the rest of your days on earth. Finally, would it surprise you to know that although my son was murdered, he will actually live forever. He will live in my heart, my mind, and my soul. I will forever cherish and value the memory of my son. DeAndre Jamal Rome will live in me, his wife, his daughters, his father, his grandparents, his cousins, his friend, his family, and Your Honor, I hope he lives in you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wimberly. full name and spell it for our court reporter?
Alexis Rohn, ALEXISRHONE.
And Ms. Round, what would you like me to know?
Okay, well, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. So I am the wife, of course, of DeAndre, or Dre as we called him. Having to sit through the trial was very hard for me. I had to relive every moment that I went through almost 2 years ago. I remember receiving the call that Dre had been shot, and in that moment I thought to myself, no way this is a joke. So we had FaceTimed each other about an hour before anything happened. The last words that we said to each other were, "I love you." So I actually spoke to him at the bowling alley. I was an hour away from home, and at that time I drove as fast as I could to get to him. Because he hadn't personally called me, I knew it had to be serious. I was 7 months pregnant with our second child and pushing our 1-year-old in a stroller walking into the hospital. Little did I know that was just the beginning of what was to come. The first surgery apparently went well, at least that's what we thought. He was rushed into a second surgery where my worst nightmares came true. Everything started to get worse and worse as the time went on. I spent about 7 days by his side in the hospital, only leaving to shower. He couldn't speak to me, but I wanted him to feel my touch and know that I wouldn't leave his side, and I was always going to advocate for him. The day he passed away in the hospital, I felt my heart break. Just how some people feel naked without their gun, I felt naked and empty inside without my husband. All of our plans as a family are no longer due to this act of gun violence. Knowing our children will only have pictures and the stories that I'll tell as memories hurts me the most. They'll never get to experience a father-daughter dance or him chasing boys away from the house. And I've just cried a lot since everything has happened, and I felt this process would never end. There's been plenty of days where I didn't even want to get out of bed or even leave the house or even pick up the phone to talk to anyone. The only thing that kept me going was knowing our children now only have one living parent to care for them. No number of words can ever express the pain I feel inside each day. No matter if you see me with a smile on my face, I'll forever carry this pain with me. As soon as I found out the name of the person who had committed this crime, I began to research. I looked up information on the court docket, just how he looked himself up. I read through his previous cases and concluded that he's a menace to society, someone who has no remorse for others, and apparent anger issues. During the trial, hearing about his family, how they had known of his wrongdoings was truly sickening. Those prayers that were being said for him surely didn't work. I would give anything to have Dre back here with us, and he was surely one of a kind and the type of person that you would never forget. He was always the life of the party and sure to light up the room when he walked in. I could stand up here and go on and on about him, but I won't take up too much time. Judge O'Donnell, I ask that you please not take it lightly for the sentencing of this criminal, as he clearly has no respect for others' lives and their families. I'll end my time standing here by saying that today is not another day for me to mourn, but a day of celebration as this has all come to an end.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Brown, for your comments.
Judges, once again, I'd ask that you consider the purposes and principles of felony sentencing, the information contained in the state sentencing memorandum, and the information that you heard from DeAndre's family here today, and not forget that in addition to the young man who lost his life, that 2 other people were seriously injured and are lucky to be alive at the hands of this defendant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. McDonald, on behalf of your client, what would you like this court to consider?
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like us to what would you like us to remain at the desk?
Table is preferable. However, if you do have individuals who wish to address the court, I would ask them to come up to the podium.
Before I address the court and/or my client. We have Mr. Scales' mother and father who are here presently, and they would like to address the court. So first, I would call Ernest Scales with leave of court.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Please state your full name for the record.
Ernest James Scales.
And what would you like me to know?
First off, I want to say something to the family. My heart is heavy today because there's 2 lives lost. But I mourn with y'all too about your son. If that had been my son, I would feel no different than what y'all feel today. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry all this stuff happened today. But I do care about y'all feelings, and I do care about DeAndre Rome. And I'm hurting about that too. I don't want to see nobody hurt or nobody die. And I just want to apologize for that, for all that stuff that happened. I just want to apologize for that as a father. And I ask you to have an amendment on your sentence. And my son, to have mercy on my son.
Thank you very much.
At this time, Your Honor, Mr. Scales' mother, Bessie Scales.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your full name for the record.
Bessie McMillan Scales.
And what would you like me to know?
McMillan Scales. McMillan Scales. I heard everything his mother said, and I apologize if she felt that I was side-eyeing, but I wasn't. We were told not to show any emotions. Just like he said, his wife Googled, I Googled, I knew there was your only child. When I was in this courtroom, I was just praying for my son. I was praying for you all. I was praying for the judge. I was praying for the prosecutors. I am a mother, and I know that was your only child. I am in so much pain, and I'm not trying to talk about my pain, minimizing yours. You are a mother, and my heart is heavy because lives are lost. And if I could give my life for both of theirs, I would, because he was a father, and I realized that he had a child and that she was pregnant. I realized that was your only child. And I would ask God to take my life and place theirs, because these are 2 young men, and you write violence. I walk every Saturday going out evangelizing, praying for people, and young boys trying to tell them and everybody about God, because violence hurts everybody. Everybody is broken. I can never, ever tell you I understand your pain because I haven't lost a son. But all death is not physical, because I'm dead inside, and he cannot not feel this. Who cannot feel this? I apologize that you thought that I was didn't care. You don't know how much I cared. You don't know how much this hurt. You don't know how much is this standing up here and being thought we're monsters. But this is not about me and him today. This is about you. So I want to share one from my heart to another mother. I cannot, and I heard about your heart attack, and we discussed it, but we were afraid to approach you, to look, because we didn't want anybody to think that we were trying to attack, because it's so much violence and there's so much hate. I pray one day that you can find forgiveness, because I'm trying to forgive myself, because every day I sit here and we wonder if we did something wrong or anything we could have done. And yes, it's history, but it's so much more. It's hate in the world. It's evil. It's so much bigger than you and I. And you said your son is a Christian, and I am too. And I pray that somehow when I was sitting there talking about God, that God is in this courtroom, and God gets the glory. And somehow you write your son's life would not be lost in vain, because he should not be forgotten. And that somehow from the tragedy of what happened with your son and at my son's hands, whether you felt it was self-defense or whatever, it needs to be felt, and it is felt. And that something good could come out of this. And when they hear about their father, that his life, that some glory could come out of this, and maybe something that we can do or my son can do to help, that nobody else or no other family has to suffer. Because everybody is hurting. It's violence everywhere. So if you think I don't care, I care. I'm up at night. I'm not just praying for my child. I'm praying for everybody. I'm praying for you. I know your names. I'm praying for everybody in this court. And I'm asking for mercy, and I'm asking for forgiveness. I have to forgive myself. My husband, we have to forgive ourselves. I'm just asking that somehow one day that you can find forgiveness. But if you don't, I understand. And I'm asking for one day the violence to stop, and people can talk you right, and not just whatever, but look at each other as sisters and brothers and not hate or jump. Because it's not only this courtroom, this whole world is in trouble. Every time you turn around, somebody is getting hurt. Somebody is picking up a gun. There's something wrong. It has to start with us. We have to learn to love and forgive and look for the best in each other and realize that, look past, and maybe we can see each other's heart and not hate. I'm asking for mercy. Judge, it's your decision. I came here. I didn't write anything down. I didn't know what to say because I cannot fabricate. I asked the Holy Spirit to come from my heart because this is from my heart. And I apologize. You think I moved on the other side because it was hard to look at you. Because we all discussed that we knew you had a heart attack, but we couldn't say nothing. We couldn't come to you. We couldn't reach out. We couldn't do anything because I understand the anger. But if you thought that I apologize that you did not think, that you felt that I didn't care. There's no way in the world I could not care. There's no way in the world I could not care about his wife, that she was pregnant and had a baby. There's no way in the world I could care that you were at the hospital with your son, and that's your only child. I have 2 other sons. So no, there's no way in the world I could not have compassion for you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Your Honor, before I address the court, my client, Mr. Scales, would like to address.
Yes. Mr. Scales, what would you like me to know?
Your Honor, I would like you to know that I'm a human being. I have feelings and emotions like everybody else. I'm sorry that that young man died. That was never my intentions to come up there and kill nobody. Yes, I wanted to fight with somebody, and I was wrong for that. And my actions led to other things, but at the same time, Your Honor, I saw somebody pull a gun and I panicked. Because, as we all know, this is a violent city. And I don't know them people, so I didn't know what to think. All at that moment, all I was thinking was survival. And I'm sorry. Like, I do gotta think about taking somebody's child away from me, somebody family member missing. I'm not no cold-hearted person. I don't care what no piece of paper say about me. I know who I am as a person. And I apologize, even though they probably never forgive me. I hope they forgive me for themselves, so their heart can feel better, so they can flow better in life. And that's it, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scales. Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, look, this is an emotional day. The unilateral decisions of my client destroyed a lot of families, just not the Rones, just not the Scales, but also the other parties involved as well. By operation of law, Your Honor, we understand that the court has a mandate of sentencing my client to a minimum of 24 years to life. Your Honor, the sentence is life, whether it's 24, 26, 30, 35. the prison sentence is still life, in which it's outside of this court's control. It's with another body, another administration, and as this court is well aware, 24 to life isn't 24 until someone gets out. It's 30, 35, 40. It's where the individual is so old that the issue of recidivism doesn't become a topic. He no longer is a threat. Your Honor, at the minimum sentence, my client could potentially, best case scenario, be released from prison when he's nearly 60 years old of age. That's the minimum sentence. We understand and we appreciate the fact that this court has discretion regarding a consecutive sentence, or stacking and stacking and stacking. Your Honor, the underlying sentence is life. We would ask that you render an adequate, reasonable, and fair sentence. Not an angry sentence, not a vindictive sentence, but just a reasonable, fair sentence. This man at 24 and a half, or 24 years to life, he'll be in the 60s. I ask that you sentence him to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I just want to say a few things before imposing sentence. I want to first say that the pain and the sadness in this courtroom is palpable. I mean, you can literally feel it. You can feel just all of it on all sides. And I want to speak specifically to Ms. Taylor, Ms. Wimberly, and Ms. Roan. I want to say that the three of you ladies, the strength and the courage that it took to sit through the entire trial, because I know I was looking at all of you every single day, morning to evening, to sit through the entire trial, to come today and, very clearly speak from the heart and share with me, who Dre was as a person is truly, it's so important. And I just want to genuinely tell all of you, I appreciate you sharing a piece of Dre with me. And I can tell you, I took notes while you were speaking, but the overarching theme for me is that this is an immeasurable loss. I took notes of kind, loving, loyal, happy son, husband, father, college educated, hardworking. But that's really that's the tip of the iceberg, I would say, because I can just tell, and not only from the three of you, but from everyone who appeared today in support of Dre's family, and those of you who, very clearly loved him and cared about him very much. None of that is lost on me. And I do hope that today will in some way bring some closure, because I'm very aware of the fact that there's nothing that I can do on this bench that is going to bring your loved one back. But I just hope that coming down today, witnessing the sentencing, addressing the court, that will in some way allow the healing process to begin. And I do thank you for that. And I do want to say to you, Mr. Scales, I appreciate your comments today, as well as the comments of your parents. But, after sitting through the trial and reflecting on the trial and, really since the verdict, just reflecting on everything, the question that I kept coming back to is, why did you not just go home after Roll House? I just think that it's the chain of events that was put into play within those 30 seconds or so outside of Uncut forever changed the lives of DeAndre Rome, the lives of Mario Gay, and the lives of Donnie Walker, as well as the lives of their friends and family, as well as the lives of your friends and family, and certainly your life. No one's lives will ever be the same. And I believe it was Ms. Taylor, when she was speaking, was talking about choices. And this case really does boil down to choices, and choices that were made by you that night that have caused irreparable harm. Before imposing sentence, the court notes for the record it has considered the record, the oral statements made here today, as well as the victim impact statements presented in court. The court must and has formulated its decision based upon the overriding principles and purposes of felony sentencing, namely to protect the public from future crime by the defendant or others, and to punish the offender using the minimum sanctions that the court determines accomplish those purposes without imposing an unnecessary burden on the state or local government resources. To achieve these purposes, the court has considered the need for incapacitation, deterrence, rehabilitation, and providing for restitution. The court must and has also considered the seriousness and recidivism factors relevant to the offense and offender pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 292912. The court must and has ensured that the sentence being imposed does not demean the seriousness of the crime and the impact it had on the victims, and is consistent with other similar offenses committed by like offenders. Finally, this sentence is not based upon any impermissible purposes, namely the race, ethnic background, gender, or religion of Mr. Scales. Mr. Scales, do you understand all of that, sir?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, Ms. Carpet, the state is electing to sentence on counts 2, 6, 7, 12, and 13. Is that accurate?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Okay, first with respect to count 2, the sentence will be life in prison with parole eligibility after 15 years. Additionally, the court does impose a 54-month firearm specification to be served prior to and consecutive with the 15 to life on the underlying. With respect to count 6, the court does impose a prison sentence of 11 years. That base sentence of 11 years will be served concurrently with the sentence of 15 years to life. In that count, the court does also impose a 54-month firearm specification that must be served prior to and consecutive with the 11 years on the base. That 54-month specification will also run consecutively to the 54-month specification on count 2. With respect to count 7, the court imposes a prison sentence at the Lorraine Correctional Institution of 11 years. The 11 years on that base count will run concurrent with the 11 years on count 6, as well as the 15 years to life on count 2. The court additionally imposes the 54-month firearm specification on count 7, which must be served prior to and consecutive with the 11 years on the base count. And additionally, that 54 months will be served consecutive with the firearm specifications in counts 6 and count 2. With respect to count 12, the court imposes a prison term at the Lorraine Correctional Institution of 8 years. That 8 years will be served concurrently with the 11 years on count 7, as well as the 11 years on count 6, and the 15 years to life on count 2. Additionally, the court imposes a 54-month firearm specification in count 12, which will be served consecutively with all other 54-month firearm specifications. Lastly, the court imposes on count 13 a sentence of 3 years at the Lorraine Correctional Institution, which will be served concurrently with the sentences on counts 2, 6, 7, and 12. So that is a total term of imprisonment of 33 years to life. I do need to advise you, Mr. Scales, given your sentence on the murder, if and or when you are released from prison, you will be supervised by the Adult Parole Authority, and that supervision will control. But I do need to advise you that you are subject to post-release control on the other charges as well. On the felony ones, it will be a mandatory minimum of 2 years up to a maximum of 5 years. On the felony twos, it's a mandatory minimum of 18 months post-release control up to a maximum of 3 years. And lastly, on the felony 3, it is up to 2 years at the discretion of the parole board. Additionally, Mr. Scales, do you understand that you have the right to appeal this matter within 30 days after the filing of the court's sentencing entry?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you understand that if you are unable to pay for the cost of a transcript, the record, and all relevant documents required for an appeal, they will be provided to you at no cost? Yes, Mr. McDonald.
I've advised my client that I don't know if you want me to make a move for the court now, but we would like for Mr. Scales to be appointed with appellate counsel as he is currently indigent, so it would be at the state's request or state's expense.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, I will appoint appellate counsel for you. I will appoint Attorney Max Martin to represent you should you choose to appeal the court's decision today. Additionally, you will be credited with 635 days. I will waive your court costs. And sir, truly, I do wish you the very best of luck. Is there anything else on behalf of the state of Ohio?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else on behalf of the defense?
And just to clarify, the court is not imposing any type of financial fine.
Correct.
Excellent.
Fines and costs will be waived.
Excellent, thank you. All
Okay,
right.
thank you very much. Defendant is remanded. We are off the record.
And there you just watched Cortland Scales leave the courtroom. 33 years to life in total is what he is now sentenced of. The appeal process could potentially begin. You heard during that the victims' parents speak. You heard different people related to the family. We also heard the parents of Scales talk as well. And you heard the judge basically saying that it took a lot of strength for the family members to speak on this and to be able to sit there and witness the conversations and the rambling that was done by Scales' mother. That is Scales right there. Again, for those that are unfamiliar, that jumped on a little bit late. Outside of that lounge, on October 29th, 2021, Scales shot a group of people that were just standing outside of there on Turney Road and Vernon Avenue. He fled the scene and was arrested basically a year later. So that was October of 2021. He wasn't arrested until December of 2022. A 30-year-old man and a 27-year-old man survived that but suffered serious injuries. He shot and killed a 28-year-old at the time. He is now facing, again, 33 years to life in prison. He does have the possibility for parole after those that is served. But, of course, this provides somewhat closure to the family. Scales saying that he had hoped that the family would forgive him, not for himself, but for them. That was something that the judge basically said that if he really felt that way, he would have just gone home and not shot up the Uncut Lounge, and ultimately led to the families and multiple lives being affected by this. All right, we will have much more on this tonight on 19 News. Our coverage for 19 News starts at 3 o'clock, so we hope to see you there. For now, I'm Jeff Slauson. 19 News. Have a great day, great night. Much more to come, both on air and online.
19 News, now streaming on